Creative Magic Club.
What's up? This is Sarah Mack and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a six-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I am here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Hi, Sarah Mack here from withsarahmack.com, and I have been so looking forward to recording this episode for you. If you've been following my social media, I got COVID 3 weeks ago, and it's just had me on my ass, and I've had a lot of fatigue. I'm still dealing with fatigue and headaches, but I'm getting better a little by little every day, and I've just, managing my energy has been a thing. So I had prepared some of this content for you for Scorpio season, and I know we're almost right at the end. But as you're gonna find out from the lessons that I have been integrating this Scorpio season, as always, it's perfect timing, because what I've decided to share with you will support you to integrate some of the lessons of the intensity that we've all been going through during this Scorpio season since, the 23rd of October. So I know many, many people have been getting one of the 3 viruses that's going around at the moment. I hope that that's not you if you're listening. If you are one of these people and you've had COVID or one of the other colds, I'm sending you so much love. I'm here with you. I feel you. And I want to share with you just some reflection points based around the energy of Scorpio. I'm going to share some of the lessons that I have been integrating, and I have a couple of prompts that I've created for you that are going to help you to dive deep into the highly uncomfortable waters that is Scorpio energy, to make the most of this time and to learn our lessons so that they don't come back and bite us as hard next time. So we can really integrate them and whatever it is that's been coming up for you over the last few weeks. So I'll start off by sharing that my relationship with Scorpio has been very challenging and uncomfortable for me. And it's something that until I really looked at my chart and started learning about astrology, I really rejected these parts of myself. And this is what I love about astrology, and I've been diving even deeper into my own astrology during this time where I've been, in the brain fog and the coughing and the fatigue of COVID my second time around, is just recognizing that we all have influences of all of these different energies, and some of them are really unconscious, some of them are really obvious. And when we look at our chart, especially at the elements of ourselves and of the way that we are showing up and interacting with life that we really resist, often they hold the juiciest lessons. So I actually have my Saturn in Scorpio. So if you know about Saturn, that's like the school teacher of the chart. Like, you cannot avoid the lessons of Saturn in this lifetime, and it's the lessons that are often the hardest to go through because they are completely unavoidable. So unless you're showing up and you're listening and you're doing the work and you're responding and you're really meeting your edges with the challenges that life is bringing you, they're going to come and they're going to keep knocking you harder and harder and harder until you finally listen and get them and integrate them. I also have Pluto in Scorpio, which is kind of a millennial placement. So if you were born between 1983 to 1995, it's likely that you have Pluto and Scorpio as well. And so this is really like a generational thing that, we are facing a lot of similar challenges and desires to really evolve evolve humanity and our culture around some of the themes of Scorpio, which I'm going to be diving into. So Pluto is really a planet of radical transformation. And so is Scorpio. It's all about like transformation, rebirth, alchemizing, darkness into light, and healing, as well as dealing with secrets and the things that we don't want to look at, like going into the darkness, feeling the pain, and in being present with it, allowing it to transform. Many of the things that are usually taboo, that we don't like to look at, or that are very hard to look at or to talk about. And, bringing darkness to light, which we're seeing so much of, happening over recent years on a global perspective. Things that were there bubbling beneath the surface that are becoming more obvious and unavoidable, so that we have to talk about them and we have to deal with them. Like, look at everything that's been going on with Israel and Palestine lately, that it's just become unavoidable for us to look at and deal with the pain both of these people have been dealing with for, years and decades. And now everyone is like, okay, cool, like maybe we should all pay a bit of attention and like figure out this hot mess over here. And obviously that's happening on a personal level and on like a very, very personal level with our own pain and trauma and just like edges that maybe we have coping mechanisms around, that suddenly something happens that brings that up to light, that we have no choice but to deal with that. Or, we meet a trigger, or we, our dark side comes out because we haven't really been addressing that and taking care of that. So, taboo, like I talk about money, I talk about sexual trauma. Like when I discovered my Saturn in Scorpio, it just helped kind of validate my urges and desire to talk about taboo things and to really feel this deep drive to talk about things that I see need to be changed, and that, ultimately meet with my larger goals in my work and my business to create freedom. It's like we cannot create freedom if we are suppressing and ignoring these huge topics that have such a big influence over our happiness and our agency, that are really uncomfortable to talk about, and that we also get so much pushback, both, within our communities, within our personal relationships, but also on a global scale as well. And even before I started my business, I was a blogger and I was writing a lot about sexuality. So, just discovering that placement helped me to, validate those urges and to really kind of light the fire up underneath me to go big with those ideas and to share them and to be more vocal and to really take a stand for them and to focus on these topics, even though, it can be so easy for us, particularly when we're, we want to follow the path of least resistance, right? Especially when it comes to making money and taking care of our health and getting the things, creating the experiences that we want, when maybe sometimes it doesn't feel easy, or we don't have a ton of support, or we feel like our back is against the wall. And it can be so easy to negotiate with ourselves of like, oh, well, I'll just like do what I've done before that was maybe more surface level, that more people are going to say yes to, than do the scary thing and go deep and take a stand for the topics that are really on my heart, that are going to be super uncomfortable. Maybe some people won't get, or they'll get triggered, or they'll not like me, or it'll attract, attention or criticism or attacks. And so many things that are genuinely a very real possibility when we start to address taboos and we start to address pain and we start to look at some of the darker sides of our humanity, which we can see happening now on social media, right? Like people are starting to take a stand for things and be more vocal about what they deeply care about and share their perspectives, and people are getting upset and people are getting triggered, and it can get really messy and really painful. But if we're not willing to go there and we're not willing to at least try and explore, then these things continue to be suppressed and they don't get healed. So it's been such an interesting Scorpio season. And I'm looking at some of the notes I took here. One of the words that was associated here as volcanic. I'm like, that's so perfect, because these things, if you ignore them and suppress them, they tend to explode. So, you know, and it's passion too. It's like darkness, mystery, passion, the underworld, the depths and the darkness, emotions, like deep, deep emotion. And we're not very good at dealing with that in our culture and in our communities. So, so that's why it's uncomfortable, right? But when we allow ourselves to access the depths of our true feelings and our true pain and, you know, what it is that we've been through, or what it is that we deeply, deeply care about, or what it is that we're in resistance to, then, I don't know, there's like an earthy realness to that kind of allows you to access more magnetism. Truth brings magnetism, right? Like, this is what I teach. This is what I work on with my clients. If we just get clear on who we are and put our story into words in a way that is really hitting the truth on the head and being clear and being powerful in our message, that's what attracts those incredible opportunities, those soulmate client connections that just feel so easy because they are right for us, because they are the right match, and they are able to see us and identify what it is that they desire in our work and in wanting to work with us specifically. That comes from really minding our truth and being visible with that and being bold and being clear around what is true to us and what is authentic to us. And, you know, and that facilitates transformation. That's like my whole belief system around my business that I've seen in working with, you know, more than 1,000 different clients, is when we just excavate our truth and we share it, not only does it transform us in the identifying and the like distilling and the sharing of that truth in really powerful ways, but in just sharing that, it creates transformation in others. But particularly when they go on to sign up and work with us and go through that transformation themselves. So, you know, some of the shadow side of Scorpio energy is kind of that obsessive controlling. And yeah, like we do that a lot, particularly with social media, right? Like there's a fine line between being magnetic, sharing our truth, taking a stand for our values and our belief systems, and then that kind of like desperate trying to control people to get them to buy from us. And that's a line that marketers are always navigating, and there are people on both sides of the spectrum, and there are people who, you know, are learning techniques from people who, you know, really are good at manipulating. And there are people who, you know in their heart what feels right and what feels wrong, and yet still trying to, you know, like it's to lead with an open heart in your marketing requires deep, deep courage to be clear in your authentic truth and your authentic message. And sometimes that can feel so much harder than just using a bunch of buzzwords that, you know, someone has told you is going to hit people's buttons and get them to buy from you, right? So, so my lessons around Scorpio, like the biggest lesson for me, Scorpio as a water sign, is just all about emotion. As a British person, a recovering British person, like we sweep emotions under the carpet. We don't have a lot of empathy or emotional intelligence or language or tools around supporting the full spectrum of emotion. You know, we inherited, and this is, you know, very similar to the foundations of American culture, even though I think Americans are just way more emotionally open than Brits. What was I saying? Emotional honesty. Like we inherited the stiff upper lip, you know? The colony was built on domination and power and control. So if you show weakness, then your domination and ability to control is weakened. So that's like the whole foundation of our culture. That's where perfectionism comes from. Like, look perfect, look strong, look wealthy, and you will intimidate the people that you desire to benefit from and to manipulate and to steal from and to control, so that you have the most power and wealth and mobility and access, due to the suppression of all of the other people that could potentially get in the way of that. And this is what we're slowly undoing. And, we're seeing big trends around this in social media where people aren't interested in perfection anymore. They're not interested in just seeing that you've ticked all the boxes and, the veneer of everything is going amazingly for you. Like, people have tasted what it feels like to be seen in their imperfections, and we're hungry for that. Like, we want to be acknowledged in the pain and the things that aren't going perfectly, so that we can look at that, because when we look at that, then we can heal that and we create change that actually brings more liberation for all of us. So there is a big undoing that's happening around the priority, the prioritization of perfection. People aren't interested in that shit anymore, but that's a constant ingoing battle with our inner colonial and our inner misogynist who, it's obviously when we're women, there's a whole other layer of beauty standards and body perfection that we have been indoctrinated into, that is just, it's in the water that we're swimming in. It's cropping up every time we choose to eat something, every time we dress ourselves, every time we choose to put on or not put on makeup, right? So there's all of these undercurrents that are controlling us, and I completely ignored all of my emotions. And, this was obviously also a trauma response. As somebody who had experienced childhood sexual assault, my body had suppressed those memories because I didn't have the safety or the tools to be able to process them until I was in, between my late 20s and 30s. I started to feel like I had the safety to actually process a lot of the sadness and the anger and the helplessness and just these huge waves of emotion that I'd stored in my body but hadn't processed or hadn't even had access to, and had been actively avoiding and suppressing and, disassociating from, which is a trauma response that my body and my unconscious naturally did to survive the situation that I grew up in. So it was a big awakening for me. That was in my Saturn's return. That was my, it's time for you to learn this lesson. It's time for you to stop distracting. It's time for you to create safety for yourself, to really take care of yourself. And it's been a steep learning curve for me. Obviously, I opened that door and so much came through it that it was really overwhelming. I was sick. I had chronic fatigue. I wasn't able to manage and process that emotion for many years. And it's something that I have had to build the tools and the support and the healing to be able to actually process. And I've had so much fear around feeling deep emotion. I don't know if any of you identify with this, but that feeling that if I allow myself to cry, then I'll never stop crying. It'll never stop. Which is something that it took me a long time to realize, oh no, crying is like peeing. You're letting something out that needs to come out. And then when it's gone, and it will end, and it does end, even though it can feel like an absolute eternity of discomfort, it doesn't take that long, and you feel so much freaking better when you've done it. But not only that, every emotion that we're having is there for a reason, and it has a message. And when we actually, the only way to access that message is to listen. And the only way to listen is to feel. And in doing that, we have access to so much wisdom that can literally take us off the path of distraction, of numbing out, of just forging forward in a direction that maybe actually isn't the best direction for us. And there is something that we haven't seen because we haven't been allowing ourselves to feel. Hey, I have a really exciting new free series that I want to make sure you know about. It's called Sign Soulmate Clients with Astrology. And I created this because when I work with clients using their astrology charts, they stop trying to sell offers in a way that feels like pushing a boulder up a hill. They start selling what they're really excited to offer. They raise their rates, often doubling them. And soulmate clients start showing up more quickly and easily than ever, which is why I'm so thrilled to share this special 3-part training series with you to show you how to read specific parts of your chart to cut the drama of overthinking your storytelling and your prices and cut straight to the actions and insights that lead to signing soulmate clients consistently with ease month after month. So when you sign up, you're going to get instant access to video number 1, which is all about signing soulmate clients by selling from your sun sign. Video number 2 is about tapping into your sales flow through your second house. And video number 3 is going to show you how to create your unique ritual for consistent clients and money flow. You don't need to know anything more than your birth time, date, and place, and I will show you what you need to know about your birth chart. This is for anyone looking to create a more consistent flow of sales from soulmate clients. And you can find this by going to my website with sarahmac.com under the freebies tab, or by the link in my bio on my social channels. For those of you who have been following me for a while, you know that I recently wrote a book over the last year. I started writing it last June and I finished writing it this June of this year. And then I took a break because we moved from New York to LA. And this book is about transforming your relationship with money to do the work that you love, and really about how it was in problem solving my relationship, my dysfunctional relationship with money, my highly emotional and triggering and avoidant and messy and disorganized and not working relationship with money that I had to straighten out in becoming an entrepreneur. And in looking at that, that was really a big trigger for me to look at some of my emotional patterns, look at some of the emotional intensity that I was feeling around just feeling helpless, not feeling worthy of charging and receiving the money that I desired, looking at the root of where that came from and understanding that so that I could heal that, and so that I could create new pathways and new patterns that would make it so much easier for me to make the money that I really desired and doing the work that felt the most authentic for me. And so there are some really personal stories in that book. And, in writing it, in reviewing some of these stories, and trauma is something that I talk about. It's not the focus of the book, but that, my trauma healing process was such a huge part of healing and transforming my relationship with money to, having my first 6-figure year in my dream business, creating the freedom creatively that I wanted to, create and write and perform and write my book and, do have the life that I wanted to live and to be financially supported in doing it. And so in the writing of it, that was an emotional process. It was a space that was allowing me to continue to process and continue to heal some of the pain that I'd been holding from my past. And, my goal is to publish the book this year. And I'd taken a break. We'd been unpacking, we'd finished 4 years of my partner doing his medical residency, earning less than the janitor of the hospital, working 70 to 100-hour weeks, just a very stressful period. During the pandemic, I was immigrating, we went through a lot. And so arriving to LA, just being by the beach and being like, oh my God, this new chapter is here, thank goodness. And just giving myself some time to decompress, and Albors has been doing the same thing. And then I went into resistance, of getting back into the book. I literally have one more draft to do. I've had some friends read it for me and give me feedback. So it's going to be a light edit of just consolidating that feedback and giving it my final, seal of approval. This is ready to go to an editor. And November was the month that I was like, right, I already wanted to get going with this in the fall, and I'd been procrastinating. Obviously I've recognized that there was some resistance there in going back and, revisiting some of those stories that aren't the most fun thing to revisit. And then I got sick with COVID at the end of October. And my capacity has just drastically been diminished. But it gave me a chance to really sit with that resistance. And I think always when you get some type of a health condition, I see it as like the universe putting you on the naughty step and just being like, you need to sit your ass down and feel the things that you've been avoiding feeling by just staying busy, having fun, you know, doing the easy projects that come naturally, or like distracting by focusing on my business, or having adventures and staying busy and not feeling some of the things that are uncomfortable. And, you know, and I got to acknowledge, like, clearly I'm in resistance because usually I'm pretty good with doing things when I say I'm going to do them. And I got to acknowledge that, you know, it's okay. It's just that I felt like I needed more support in that process. And obviously, having been moving from New York to California, America is really dumb in the way that when you're in a different state, you're not allowed to work with the same practitioners, even though you work online. So I had to end with my therapist that I was working with in New York. And it's just been a process, you know, to like get settled, figure out the whole new healthcare, just a whole other version of a dysfunctional healthcare system that is life in America. And to actually get a new therapist onboarded and realizing that I actually needed that. Just having that space to know that if something comes up for me in the final draft of my book and revisiting those stories, and maybe it wouldn't, maybe, you know, maybe I've like worked through a lot of that. But just knowing that support is there to be able to process, to be able to feel held, to be able to be seen in my process and to feel supported. And I realized that was something that I needed to actually move into the next phase of getting my book out there into the world. So, you know, I wouldn't have had that realization if I had just continued to be busy, having fun, doing all the things that were easy and, you know, stimulating in all of the right ways. So we have to be grateful, even when it feels like we're falling flat on our face or we're so freaking uncomfortable. There is a lesson, and the faster we feel, the faster we're present, the faster we learn that lesson, we can make the moves. It's not going to say that the discomfort is necessarily going to go away, but there's always a way to create momentum where maybe there's stagnation, or maybe there's pain from controlling or like refusing to look at something. There's always a consequence to that, you know, even in moving into the pain, even though it can feel more technically painful, the freedom that comes with that can actually feel really good. That's like the Scorpio medicine. So another lesson that's been coming up for me is, just letting go of control, right? That's always a lesson in ill health, is I don't have control over my body is feeling right now, and just it has to rest. When it has to rest, then that's the only option. I'm not in control of that. I mean, obviously, I couldn't push through, to be honest with you. That is the intensity of COVID. And then I discovered I had this other breakthrough in looking at my chart. I have a lot of placements in fixed signs. So Scorpio, even though it's a water sign, which is all about emotion, and the flow of emotion, it's actually a fixed modality. So cardinal is like the beginning, the starters, like the beginning of the season. The fixed modalities are like that slow and steady, consistent, kind of like maintaining energy that keeps the season going. And then mutable is change, is like the instigator of change. So I discovered, and I kind of brought a new awareness of where I had been kind of fixed and rigid in my behaviors, or in my outlook, or in my habits, or in just the way I'm managing myself and my relationships, or communicating my time, my relationship to my body. So that's another really cool kind of like level of awareness that came up for me during this time as well. So the lesson of Scorpio is like, it's good to cry, you know? It's really cathartic. It's like allowing yourself to have that catharsis, to, instead of resisting the pain, instead of trying to control the way that you feel or control yourself in order to avoid feeling a certain way, to just surrender to it, to surrender to the intensity of the emotion, whatever that is for you, to allow yourself to fall to the floor, to be brought to your knees, to feel, and to have the transformation, like to be alchemized, to be the phoenix that is burnt to ashes and then is reborn to, into a new form, into something different. But that alchemy can't happen if we're just trying to control and put all the pieces together perfectly and pave the perfect path to where we think it is that we want to go. Like, we don't know. We don't know what the, once we rise from the ashes, what it's going to feel like, where we're going to want to go. We have to surrender to the process, to the alchemizing, to the falling apart, the crumbling, the burning, and dissolving, to allow that energy to transform into something new. So, this is all about shadow work, and allowing yourself to see aspects of yourself or coping mechanisms that maybe you've thought are just a part of your personality, but aren't really who you are and aren't really needed in the next ito of where it is that your soul wants to go. And having my Saturn in Scorpio, like, that's all about facing the dark and confronting your fears. And so, my biggest fears, the things that have held me back the most, are fear of judgment, fear of criticism, fear of rejection, fear of being hurt. And I feel like I've been through a lot of those and experienced them. And I see this with clients and friends. It always tends to be the way, like, whatever your biggest fear is, you kind of, if you allow it to control you, you'll end up manifesting it. Like, in me being public about my story, I got a lot of rejection and a lot of criticism and a lot of hurt in a lot of my relationships. And like, that was like a whole other level of trauma than, the initial trauma that I was talking about in the first place. And yeah, it was like horrendous and painful, but now I've been through one of my worst fears. Like, I know that I'm capable of moving through it. And that's that, like, next level of liberation that I wouldn't have had access to had I not been through some iteration of that. So it's the Scorpio medicine. It's not always an easy pill to swallow, but it's so, so powerful and life-changing when we surrender to it. It's about intimacy. It's about trust. And that starts with ourselves, right? Like, trusting that when we get intimate, when we go into the dark corners, that no matter how scary the thing that we find is, like, we're even stronger than we thought. We're even stronger than we thought to look at that, to deal with that, to process that, to learn how to move through that and to grow through that. And how much power is on the other side of, like, getting that real, tangible truth and experience. So whatever it is that you're feeling called to fight for, or to surrender into, or to look at, or to feel, or to ask for, or to deny, or to leave, or let go of, there's going to be a huge gateway of power that becomes accessible to you when you give that to yourself. This is deep, deep work, often, related to sexuality, related to death, money, secrets, taboos, all those things we love to avoid looking at and talking about. So just reflect on, what's coming up for you when I'm sharing these themes with you. What's been going on for you for the past few weeks? What is, like, undeniable, and maybe what's been bubbling below the surface that you've been resisting? What are some of the signs? Like, just what pops up into your mind and your intuition as we're talking about this. So here are the lessons that I'm integrating. And this is another example. Like, I set my intention, I'm fully addicted to going deep into astrology and bringing more and more of that into my work and my content and my work with clients. And, I'm like, I want to do content prompts for each season. I want to do money alignment prompts for each season. And as is usually the way, right? As soon as I make a plan and I'm like, cool, here's the plan, here's the structure, This is predictable. This is decided. This is fixed. Obviously I went and got really sick for Scorpio season, and my physical ability to produce what it is that I had decided that I was going to produce was taken away from me. And I'm pretty good at breaking my own rules. And, there's like different ways of relating to that, especially, as someone who I've had to build a lot of self-trust, particularly, as someone who has an ADHD diagnosis, like following through on projects and plans was something that I really struggled with earlier on, that I'm much, much better at now in prioritizing, scheduling, following through, while also, giving myself a lot of flexibility, which has always been necessary, particularly as a creative person, particularly as a manifesting generator who has to be lit up and excited by the things that I'm doing. And particularly as someone who's had a lot of chronic health challenges since day one of my business. So that's just like another level of surrender. And just, looking at the way that I create rules for myself, or the way that I create plans. And instead of being like, oh, I'm going to give myself a hard time about this, or see that like, oh, now I failed at my plan, actually looking at as like, well, this is like my intention, and it gets to evolve, and it obviously will evolve. And I'm open to that. And I'm knowing where my level of commitment is, checking in with my true desire for following through on my intention, and like being creative and flexible, and being open to constantly challenging the intentions and decisions that I've made, not from a place of wavering and not following through, but from a place of deeply listening and deeply trusting my creativity. Really surrendering my need to control and plan. Like, that's a really big one for me. Even though I am pretty go with the flow, I'm still very much in process with finding a new relationship with controlling and planning. So stay tuned if you want more updates on that. I will continue to share them. But this is just like a whole other level of following inspiration and trusting the unfolding. Like, I could have been crying, about being so sick for so long and so fatigued. But I'm at that place now where I'm just in such deep trust that this is exactly what I need. And I think the fact that COVID is such a global phenomenon has like really helped me with that lesson, knowing that I'm not alone, and it's not like I'm suffering and everyone else is living their best life, which I used to think when I experienced health challenges. Not that, I wish this on anybody else, but knowing that like we're all going through so much together, and recognizing that over the last few years has helped me to recognize that, well, clearly there's a lesson for all of us here. And I, the easiest option is to surrender to it and enjoy watching Selling the OC on Netflix and diving into astrology and resting and sleeping, which is, what I've been doing, and actually, enjoying it despite the painful physical symptoms. That's been one of my lessons, is really, my brain hasn't really been working, and it hasn't been as active as it usually is at those very high levels of activity. So I'm learning to deeply rest. I'm learning to let go of being a squirrel-brained activity addict. And and learning to create space and to feel, to feel what's come up when it comes up, and know that it's not going to last forever. And that support is the way, it doesn't have to be painful. Like, listening to our pain, like, it can be uncomfortable, but we don't have to add extra suffering on top of that. When we really listen to that and see it as this is a message calling for a need to be met, how do I get to fulfill that? Like, trusting that whenever there is a need, we are capable of meeting that need. So really just being open to that, and recognizing like, okay, I'm going to stop giving myself a hard time for not having got back to my final draft of my book. And actually the next step in this process is for me to hire my therapist. And I hired a new therapist last week. So I'm getting ready to dive in for the final draft, and I feel supported around it. And it might be uncomfortable. it might be amazing. It will probably be both. But I'm ready and I will keep you posted, and I am committed to getting this book out there. So I'm going to share some prompts with you. And these are more, journaling prompts around personal transformation to integrate whatever your lessons have been from this Scorpio season. And maybe, I would encourage you to reflect on money. Oh yeah, that's another lesson for me. I'm all about group programs. That's a big part of my vision for my business. And over the past few months, I've just been really called to let my plans to launch group programs go for now. And I have just focused on filling up my Voxer. So I've just been working one-on-one with clients. Working with them in Voxer gives me so much flexibility with my fluctuating energy levels. My clients get my support every day if they want it and need it. And I get to lie in my hammock in the yard and support my clients, and I don't have to show up for a scheduled call time. And I just think it's such a win-win for me and my clients, and I am obsessed with this way of working, and clients have just been showing up. So, in letting go, and it's not that is no longer my vision, it's not that I'm giving up on that vision, that's very much a part of my vision for my business, but just allowing myself to take a pause and to shift gears and to scale back and to really, really, really simplify in my business, and looking at what are the non-negotiables that keep my momentum going without, putting so much pressure or high expectation on myself. So that's the phase that I've been in, and my business has continued to support me, and I'm so grateful for that I listened and I didn't see it as I'm failing and I should continue to push and try. I didn't have the energy to push for anything, and that was really the gift of that. So here are the prompts, the two main themes. So yeah, I would say just look at money, right? Because money is a very Scorpio theme. But the prompts that I've created are around the themes of trust and around the themes of pain and healing. Because, in really going there, I know that in connecting to the deepest level of your authenticity, that unlocks your highest level of magnetism. So this is whether or not this translates into content ideas for you, or whether or not this leads to breakthroughs around the way that you're making money or the way that you're showing up in your business. Just the alchemy of going there, it's going to make you more magnetic to opportunities that are right for you in this season. So your first prompt is, what am I resisting right now that has the potential to be so magical if I fully trusted it would all unfold perfectly? So, just like I was trying to move ahead with the group programs and I just surrendered into just working one-on-one with clients for a bit, I was like, wow, that cleared up a lot of to-do lists, to-do items on my list. That gave me back a lot of space. That really created simplicity. That's given me spaciousness and kind of allowed me to reconnect to my business in a new way that I haven't been for a while. And it's still been wildly profitable and wildly valuable. So maybe there's something like that for you. Maybe there's something that's tapping you on the shoulder that wants to come in, that maybe seems too simple or too good to be true. So just do a few pages of stream of consciousness. See what comes up for you. Maybe there's, another income stream or a different way of making money. Maybe it's a type of rest that you're deeply, deeply craving, that if you would just give that to yourself and trusting that everything would work out around you, that would be pretty freaking magical. Maybe it's letting go of something in a relationship that's been causing friction, or saying something that's been going unsaid. Maybe there's some pent-up emotion that you need to let out. Have a good cry in the bath, sing a sad song, or scream and punch a pillow. And then the second question is, what lesson does my pain have to teach me? And the only way you're going to get that is to feel it And if you've been on social media lately, there's plenty of opportunities to be exposed to the opportunity to feel pain, whether it's on a personal level, whether it's on a collective level. So, have healthy boundaries, but give yourself permission to feel if you haven't given yourself permission to feel. If you've been trying to check out or numbing or avoiding or distracting, whether this is on a global level or a personal level, Scorpio is all about going there. So, and this doesn't have to take a long time. Go and run a bath, give yourself 45 minutes and just allow yourself to be with whatever comes up. Be in the water, connect and feel. Some other ways that you can do this are journaling it out. One prompt that I like to use is just naming the sensations in my body. Like I'm feeling a sadness or a heaviness in my stomach or in my heart, and I'm allowing it. I'm allowing the sadness. I'm allowing it to move up through my throat. I'm allowing my breath to become heavier or shorter, and just like naming the physical sensations that I'm experiencing as a way to be really present with it and to really give myself permission to allow it to process and to unfold and to see what comes out of that. Emotional freedom tapping is great. There's so many videos on YouTube. Breath work is great. Just meditation, simple meditation is great, or some type of movement meditation like yin or gentle yoga. So you're not just like powering through, but you're actually like really slowing down and allowing your body to speak and giving it the space to really listen to it. So I would love to know, what are your Scorpio lessons? What are you integrating? Feel free to send me a DM, send me an email. Let me know if you have enjoyed this episode, and I'm happy to be on the mend and to be back getting back into the groove of creating content again. So please leave a review on iTunes. Please share this episode with anyone that you know would love it and benefit from it. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. And I'll see you next week. Bye. For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com, and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.